Behind the Counter is brought to you by Audible.com, the internet's leading provider of audiobooks with more than 100,000 downloadable titles across all types of literature. For a free audiobook of your choosing, go to audiblepodcast.com/Andrew. And by Stitcher Radio. Listen on the go via the Stitcher mobile app. For more information, go to stitcher.com/GFQ. Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Behind the Counter. I'm your host, Rich Stambolian. With me as always is the man who is the inspiration for the new Kanye West album, Jonathan Adler.
Jesus.
What's going on, bro?
Not a whole lot, man.
Yeah, I wish I had a better intro for you, but I for some reason I thought about that.
Hey, man, it's timely.
A lot of new albums coming out. You got Queens of the Stone Age, Kanye, Daft Punk. I'm saying like within the last couple of months.
Good stuff.
And you're getting a new Amon Amarth album in a couple of weeks.
Great.
Good for me. And new Black Sabbath, which is pretty rocking too.
Man. Is that next week, right?
Came out already.
Oh.
Yeah, it came out on Tuesday.
And next week, Kanye.
And next week, Kanye. So
he is the Michael Jordan of rap.
That's arguable.
6 championships. And he's from Chicago.
Yeah,
so it works out. All right, welcome
down.
to Behind the Counter. This is your one-stop shop for everything comic book and pop culture related. Today, our special guest would be B. Clay Moore, writer extraordinaire. We're going to bring him on a little bit, but right now I'm going to ask John a question.
What's up?
Talk to me, bro.
That's not a question.
I know. Talk to me, bro. What's up with the news?
Not a whole lot. I think the biggest rumor these days are, I talked about this last week, about what's her face?
You living in Groundhog?
Kind of, yeah.
Groundhog Day?
I'm very brain dead today. That what's her face from Doctor Who is going to be playing Angela. That they're incorporating Angela into the Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
It's Angela, like the Spawn.
Yes,
Angela.
the Todd McFarlane, Neil Gaiman,
The Spawn Hunter.
The Spawn Hunter. So.
Who is she gonna hunt in the Marvel universe now?
I don't know. I have no idea what they're going to use her in the comic book.
Well, I used to hunt Spawn.
Not no more.
I would like the reveal for Age of Ultron to actually be Spawn.
That the whole thing was Spawn.
Mm-hmm. That
That'd
like
be
he
cool.
replaced Mephisto in Hell, and it's Spawn,
I'd work with that.
and they bring the timer back to.
I think that'd be bigger news.
How
than
much
Angela.
longer do we have left for the story?
Oh, stupid.
That-
Friggin' timer they never moved. What a dumb idea.
Not always moved, but it was like a power counter.
Yeah,
And it
like-
took me forever to figure it out.
It bottomed out like I think by the 10th issue, and then they just restarted again.
Mm-hmm. There was I think they did another arc where like he went straight to hell,
Yeah,
and then he won.
yeah. He won, and he realized that the Melboglia is not the devil.
All right, and then he became Swamp Thing for like 2 issues.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And they did all the stuff with what's his name, Cagliostro.
And that's also when I sold my Spawn comics.
Yeah, no, it's exhausting thinking about the Spawn run I had. And I think I was done when they started doing the all the Chapel stuff,
Okay.
and they started having him come back, and then I think that's when they started doing that big Prophet Crip storyline.
See, I liked all that stuff got retconned, I think.
It did,
Yeah, but I
did.
like that stuff about how like, oh, the guy from Youngblood is actually like a murderer,
yeah,
and he killed Al Simmons.
and also Prophet is going to be a bad guy later on.
Right. And then now we have like the,
They have
the
really
landscape
cool-
is it's
yeah.
so weird. It's so weird now. Yeah.
That's a character I really didn't
Mhm.
think he would ever be in a position to be like in a heavy metal comic for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah.
That comic is so sci-fi.
It is. It really is. But it's also like kind of a cool like, hey, he made it kind of thing. You know?
Yeah, totally.
Where it's like the thing about early Image Comics, which strikes me is very ironic and funny, is that these guys are dudes who wanted to work together and make create their own stuff.
They couldn't work together.
But then they were like, we're gonna kind of really just own our own stuff,
Yeah.
and like leave like you guys behind.
You know what? I still my favorite thing with that era of Image was 1963 from Alan Moore,
Okay,
where he was
Yeah.
like slowly building towards a weirdo crossover with them.
right.
That was like really, really fun
Mhm.
stuff.
And then nothing happened.
Nothing
Image
happened.
now is freaking incredible.
So many titles, so many number ones.
Yeah, a good number ones too, man.
Yeah.
You got Image didn't put it out. I was gonna say Killjoys, but I think Dark Horse put that
Yeah,
out this week.
I think they put out. Did you Thumbprint with Joe Hill,
I'm not sure.
Stephen
I think
King's son?
it
I
might be,
think they
IDW.
put it out.
I know he has a deal with IDW because he
Yeah,
does that
which
with the
ending.
Clockmaker stuff, which I've never read. My
Lock and Key is incredible.
I'm sorry, Lock and Key.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I've never read that. My fiance is like all about it.
That stuff is
To
good.
murder me if I don't get like any new Lock and Key stuff.
It's really,
Yeah.
really good and really messed up. That I can't wait to see when they decide to adapt that into a television show.
Yeah, So what'd you read this week?
What did I read? Well, my first read was Bats.
Okay,
Totally Batman.
go into it. Let's do it.
So this is the beginning of the much talked about awesome cover, kind of part of the Batman symbol. It was the beginning of the Batman Year Zero. This is like really early Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
But the story opens up in a weird way. It says 6 years ago, which
Right.
is pre Justice League and New 52 stuff.
So it's year one without saying year one.
Exactly. And it's not really year one yet because it's not really Batman, but Gotham is totally overgrown. Looks, very dangerous. There's a bunch of barracuda faced people running around, little kids fishing in a flooded subway system. And Batman saves the day wearing purple gloves, which is the original incarnation of Batman, was the purple glove Batman riding a motorcycle. And something happened where Gotham is done.
Yeah.
Game over.
No man's land.
And then it goes into a continuation of the Year Zero, Batman number 0 issue, where he's tracking down the Red Hood gang, and they're doing a retcon on them, on Red Hood and how they work, and it's like this weird like mystery group, and who is the Red Hood? Because you think it'd be Joker, but it's more than likely it's not going to be him.
Yeah, I mean, you also got like that's kind of like an ambiguous character right now because it's obviously somebody who can pool people together. That was never really the Joker shtick, and I think Snyder's not really going to touch it since he did like the massive Joker story a couple months ago. But we did get the introduction to
Riddler.
Edward Nygma, who becomes the Riddler, which I really like. I always like how they make him really shrewdish and just like kind of gross,
Yeah. And they also had a couple like neat little nods. The fact that when he returned in front of the Wayne Industries was the big penny,
right?
And also the I guess something to do with Wayne Enterprises. Also, they have the hats that have the Robin R on them.
The R on them, yeah.
Which I don't understand.
Research
Division.
Yeah.
All right.
So makes sense.
But it was a solid issue. Beautiful, beautiful art from Capullo.
Yeah.
As usual. Like he honestly gets better and better with every arc he goes on.
Nah, he does. I like the way he draws young Bruce Wayne like all like cherub faced and kind of like big blue eyes.
Kind of like Dick Grayson-y.
Yeah, very Dick Grayson-y. And I like how in the story, like it makes a lot of sense where his uncle, who's a Kane, meets him because this is when he comes back basically from doing the Bruce Wayne stuff and like learning how to fight and all that crap. And his uncle is like, I gave up following you, but you know how I found you is I followed Alfred. Like how hard is
Wire, follow the money.
Yeah, like how
follow the Alfred.
How hard is it to follow like Alfred Pennyworth, the only British guy in the city?
And maybe Bruce Wayne killed somebody.
Right. Well, I don't think so.
Also what was a really interesting thing about was it's completely the whole issue, and even the Batman Zero issue was it's all in daylight.
Yeah,
which is a really odd thing for especially Snyder and Capullo, which is basically Batman scenes are usually in the nighttime if it's in his book.
I liked it though.
It's amazing. It's a beautiful take on it. Like especially when they did that. They were doing like kind of like a rundown of Gotham itself, and they had that 4-panel 1-page spread.
Yeah,
where it had like the different sections, like people run the subway and the streets and everything. And it's like Gotham is not terrible yet.
And you also get like if you're picking up comics now and you kind of want to see what I think this is a good jumping on point for new readers. You also get the a little more well-roundedness to the Thomas Wayne character.
Yeah,
because now you see like
more personality.
He's got more personality. He's kind of like a car guy. He's like likes to tinkers with.
And he was working on the original Batmobile.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't really go wrong with Snyder.
Never.
And it's part of a really solid run. Now, what did you think about Superman Unchained?
All right.
Because it was very polarizing.
Yeah, you know what? Like
also from Scott Snyder.
And
Jim Lee.
It's pretty much exactly what I thought it was going to be, for the most part. Like until the very end of it. I expected a lot of people in armor. I know it was a very Jim Lee comic.
Yeah.
Which is not my bag. It's not my thing. And even the thing I was worried about is the Jim Lee influence kind of taking over the Scott Snyder influence. And I saw much more Jim Lee than I saw Scott Snyder. It's a very narrative driven, thought balloon style story. But the big reveal at the end is that the government has had this other Superman for 75 years, which coincides with the 75th anniversary of Superman.
Right.
But so who do you think it is? And what did you like? Did you like it?
I enjoyed it because it I'll agree with you where it seemed like it was more Jim Lee than anything.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that Snyder is kind of opening the world up a little bit and saying, hey, this is some new things that we're kind of adding to the mediocre Superman stuff that's been happening lately. But he's in an interview, it may have been a red herring. He said that
his new character,
is a completely new character, Captain Atom. This is what I'm thinking.
I think a lot of people are saying Captain Atom also. I think this. I think when he says new character, it might be a new interpretation of it. He, in my opinion, he really looks like Commander Steel.
Yes.
Like, especially around the icon, that's whatever that, like, eagle or star that's on his chest.
And it makes sense because it's a World War II era character.
Exactly. And that would be pretty cool. That would be a nice little thing. As a first issue, it feels exactly like a New 52 first issue.
Okay.
You know, it gives you bare bones and, you know, kind of like, you know, keeps you coming back for more.
We're hinting at something until you pick up issue 2.
Exactly. Yeah. The first issues are some of the weakest things that they've done in New 52, among the other stuff. But it's also, I think I gave the benefit of the doubt because the Superman stuff is so middle of the road right now. If this is like kind of the best of the bunch, which is honestly not saying much, in my opinion.
Do you think this is going to lead up to an introduction of Wildcats?
Yes, actually. I actually do.
Yeah.
I think they probably will have some spacefaring Wildcats coming.
At like issue 5, they're going to show up.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I also kind of I tuned it out too when I was reading it. That whole segment with him talking to Jimmy and then like talking to Lois.
Right.
Because also I'm so out of touch of what's going on with like Superman's job.
Yeah.
Last time I was Superman, he was a fireman.
No, he's reporting now.
I know. But he leave the Bugle? That's what he's saying? Like he left
the Daily Planet.
The Bugle. Same freaking thing. He left the planet. JJJ didn't want him anymore. Who's that big guy? But he's still talking to the planet. Like he's still talking to Lois Lane and her like back computer.
I think I'll agree with that. I think he still works there.
They spend so much time with the freaking bagels. Like, go on bagel. You gotta go on bagel.
Did you not like that? Too much bagel exposition for you?
Yeah, I like to limit my bagel exposition to like one panel.
A
Bendis bagel.
I enjoyed it. I'm kind of like,
I didn't hate it.
I didn't hate it. I'm skeptical on it.
Very skeptical
because like I had this conversation with a gentleman who works at the comic shop that I frequent.
Yes.
Who. Yeah, like he kind of was like this. He like completely was against. He's like he hates it, you know.
Yeah.
And as a fan, you kind of get jilted by the same stuff that like you get excited when Jim Lee's gonna do a new thing, right? And then you get 4 issues in, and then like the pencils kind of start to sag a little bit, and then issue 5 or 6, it's like I gotta get Travis Charest to fill this in for me.
Yeah. You know? I was kind of looking for that, you know, in the get go because I know that dude has a big trouble with schedules,
right?
Because he's too busy in Italy, like eating gelatos.
Yeah, he's a millionaire.
I know,
he's a freaking millionaire
and running a company. But I kind of like started justifying some of it and saying not justifying it, but a lot of it took place underwater, so I could do like the wavy lines and not have to like really go heavy on the
not draw anybody's feet.
Yeah, pretty much. Like it's like I think most of the issue was Superman looking over stuff. You know, like it's like
what's
rocks.
in there?
It's like what's going on? I gotta lift this thing up.
That's a good way to get away with easy drawing. Just draw your guys behind rocks all the time.
Whoa! But it was a weird issue. I didn't hate it. I personally, I probably think I liked it better than I thought it was gonna be.
I've read so many different reviews about this where like I've actually read people
I haven't at all
who think like this is the be all end all of Superman in 52. Like, this is amazing.
That's the same people who think that Hush is the greatest story I've ever told.
That's probably true. And also I've read that like this is like people who've said that they're gonna leave comics if DC keeps doing this.
Isn't this a shame though? Because like Scott Snyder's a talent.
Yeah.
But I really feel there's a weirdo thing
and a Time Lord.
He is the 13th Doctor. I really think that that Jim Lee, when he ever gets on a project, he's like, I'm Jim Lee. I sold millions of comic books. You have to listen to my influence.
I charge you $10,000 for an appearance.
Yeah, like I can't believe that. And he just really like kind of says like, oh, how about some more like dudes in space armor? How about like this thing, space.
Now the other thing I talk with about this with the gentleman at the comic store is, why not just bring in Wildcats 3.0 into the modern DC? which is arguably the best incarnation of the team because it would fit in so well.
That is the greatest incarnation of Wildcats to intellectuals. Most people just want. I don't know if other people even want Wildcats.
It may have passed because your Fairweather fan probably doesn't even know who like the original incarnation was.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
Because like for them, I could see the fan forever because for them, Hellspawn is like a new guy, and they're like, oh, he's like Superman.
He's already in DC, right?
He fought Superman.
That's
like,
right.
Oh, Superman's fighting like a demon-headed alien. Cool with the Wolverine head.
And they do have the weird tie-ins with Demon Knights,
right?
Yeah.
But you're. Which I'm not taking a dump on the Demon Knights thing because DC has always lacked like Marvel has their aliens, your Badoon, your Shi'ar, your canon of like reliable evil alien races.
They have nobody.
DC has like the Weaponers Accord, and
Sinestro's people,
the Thanagarians.
They have like whatever hodgepodge they're having the corpse at that moment,
right?
And then they have the big head aliens from Invasion,
right?
Yeah.
But you don't get like the Demon Knights are fine. They'll be like the evil alien race. That's cool.
They're like the Brood. They're like the same thing as the Brood.
They're like the Chitauri.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
And that's fine. But I would like to see more of like the good streamlined Wildstorm stuff be introduced, like Mr. Majestic. Well, like I said, Wildcats 3.0. Grifter, who's arguably one of the best visual creations from Wildstorm. You could have relaunched that with so much substance. Azarello, Eduardo Rizzo, Grifter comic.
Hell yeah.
Right?
I want to see Backlash also.
Okay.
He was cool.
I never really read Backlash.
Neither did I, but I really loved his look. I like guys with worms coming out of their hands. I was a big Constrictor fan. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. Just like, are you a big Omega Red fan too?
No. I don't know what it was about him. I think he needed a mask. I would have liked him more.
Okay.
If he didn't have like the headgear thing.
So like guys with tendrils coming out of their wrists.
And a face mask.
Okay.
Really great.
So I never really read like the Backlash stuff, and it was good. Voodoo was another one too, and like as soon as Ron Mars got taken off the book, like
Gen 13 was fun in the beginning.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Deviate was my favorite thing of Wildstorm.
I don't think I ever read
Deviate was like the anti-Gen 13 written by Warren Ellis. They used that guy Frostbite. He was like the leader of the group.
Mm-hmm.
He was on Suicide Squad recently.
Okay.
But it was like they're all drug abusers. They were assholes. It was like
the more adult.
Yeah, totally. And it was a lot of fun. It was a really good book. That was the beginning of Ramos.
Yes, I remember that because I remember at the same time he did Crimson. Also, which is like the vampire kid, which is kind of neat. I like a lot of that stuff. Like, never finished.
I know.
Do you remember like stuff like that, and like a lot like one book that comes to mind that never was from like the heyday of like I would say like the late 90s era of comic books was when Madureira did Battle Chasers, and it finished, but like that last issue came out like 6 years after the fact.
Yeah,
for the most part, it sucks.
It does.
I hate that. But
anyway. I don't read vampire books.
No.
The only vampire book I'll read was
American
Morbius.
Vampire.
No, I read some of that too. Yeah.
It's your boy, man. Scott Snyder.
Good guy.
It's your boy.
Good guy.
Walking Dead also came out this week.
Awesome book. Really cool. It's still, I was reading, I really enjoyed the issue, but I think you agree with me also. It feels like they're kind of paying the storyline out at this point.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, all right, let's get to see where we're going at this point. But they do, every Negan scene is completely fascinating.
That is true, yeah.
And Jesus is a great character. Like, I really like the dynamic between him and the mayor. And like the turning, like that, kind of plot twist with Negan where he gutted the guy who was going to sell out Rick. Because I got nervous. I thought he was going to tell him that Rick is planning this attack on him, but he just wanted the position, and then Negan guts him because he has no balls.
It adds like a layer to the onion of Negan because it's such a weird character, and
he's joining them.
I feel like your team is going to be Rick, Jesus, and Negan at some point. And
sick.
I think the Tiger guy is going to bite it.
Yeah, something terrible's going to happen to that tiger.
Ezekiel.
I think that the tiger's actually going to end up attacking him.
Okay.
That'd be crazy.
Yeah. It was kind of like a filler issue, but it was a good one-off get to know Negan issue.
Yeah. I think it's a transitionary issue where I think something big is going to be happening in the next couple of issues.
Right. And now, and like also this is like setting up, this issue was the character setting up a setup.
Oh, yeah.
To set up the guy.
So many setups.
This is like the first 10 minutes of Ocean's 11.
I still enjoyed the hell out of it. Don't get me wrong. I really dug it. I thought, there's something very defeating about that comic when it comes to that last page.
Yeah.
It's just because it kind of comes out of nowhere, and you turn the page and you kind of hope it's not the last page.
Right.
Because you really, it's a book that I think just you want to. I don't need that anymore. That you really just want to keep on going.
If you suffer from really bad depression, I would not recommend reading the Walking Dead comic at all. Because every last page is like
a downer. Yeah, it's never
sucks.
I think there's been like 3 happy moments in the story. And that's it.
Yeah. I remember when the Glenn Death issue came out, like everybody was going bananas about it. That was the first thing I read. I think I got comics at like 10 in the morning and came home and was like, the rest of my day's garbage.
It's true.
But also that was I think that day like an awesome Batman book came out, and that kind of like lifted me up.
Yeah, I think it was the same day that one of the Joker issues came out.
Yeah.
Which is not really an upper, but still cool.
It was an upper.
Yeah. What else I want to say about the book? I don't know. I think it's still one of the top books out there.
Oh, it is. Absolutely.
It's just I think he's getting to the padding section.
Yeah. But he's going to be on this book like forever for the foreseeable future.
TV show's going to be going on forever too.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I mean, AMC says they don't want to ever end the show.
I don't know.
I think it's a terrible idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I just deep down feel like you're going to get one more season out of it. And
one more?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
How is that possible?
I think so. I think you're going to get like one.
How is that possible?
And it's going to get like canceled.
No way.
It's going to turn on itself.
Even I think quality wise, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. I think they've already made that turn in the first season, but I think they're, in terms of ratings, I think they'll watch it no matter what. I think people will continue turning into that
because it's not going into the artistic kind of land that you want it to go. It's going into the sci-fi channel land that it has been for the past season and a half.
Well, also here's my biggest problem with it. Also, is like I'm drawn to. The reason why I like Walking Dead so much is because of those extreme moments where you really get some complete shocking, and also like the really emotional complexity that comes out of like a human drama that happens to take place in a zombie apocalypse.
Right.
A lot of that stuff is not in the show. They're pussing out on major plot lines.
Yeah.
And yet you turn to Game of Thrones and they're nailing it. They're doing stuff that's even more powerful, if not as powerful as the stuff they do in the comics. And they're staying true to the adaptation.
Do you think they're glossing over too much?
Yes.
In the third season? Do you think they just like skipped over a bunch of stuff that's not really so pertinent?
I mean, I think Laurie's death was really great.
Okay.
Like I think it was like hardcore and the whole nine. It's something that I wanted. But I mean, the imagery of the prison riot and her getting blasted by a shotgun blast was something that really was like one of the biggest holy shit moments in that entire series.
But that's the thing, you don't get that on the show. You don't get like your big holy shit moments. You do and you don't, because fans of the comic are spoiled by Carl shooting Shane, Laurie getting her face blown off, Rick losing his hand, the governor showing up, like all that cool stuff, which could have been easily done on the show.
And especially the governor stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that you could have gone extreme with him. Like the reason why Governor was so awesome was not because he's a complicated character, is because he was inherently a bad guy. You knew he was a bad guy, and he did the worst possible things you've ever seen on the story so far. And you don't have that. You don't have any of that weight that's in the comic.
Right.
And the dynamic is going to be changing over the years too.
Right. Exactly. And you you're going to keep certain characters alive on the show just because of like fandom. And also I think they need a better continuity editor, because there was so much stuff in that last season that like just little bits of like that irritate me, because like I appreciate the visual, just like the stimulus that television gives me and like the correctness, but like having the governor hold a scoped gun to his bad eye is a little ridiculous, and
the car thing
and like the rocket launcher thing and like all the car stuff is just like, it's a little too much, that for some reason that bothers me more than anything. But
I'm totally willing to subscribe to it and say like, okay, you need to look at the comic and the comic and the television show as two separate entities. Yeah. But it's really difficult when you're this attached to a storyline and you know how good it can be.
Yeah,
but like seeing, I don't know. I personally think I'm pretty much
done.
I'm gonna watch it, but I'm not committing to it. I think a good episode is gonna surprise you more than anything nowadays.
Okay. Like a good season opener.
Like that episode with Morgan. Yes. It was fantastic.
Absolutely.
That was exactly what I wanted to show.
We also have to compete with shows that are just like Breaking Bad and Mad Men, which are on the same channel.
Look at that. And like how incredible that is. And they're just paying to like the middle of the road factor with Walking Dead. There's like one of the zombies and there's what's his name with the crossbow. You're good.
Yeah.
I can't
Keep him pretty. Keep him clean.
I can't believe it. Yeah.
That's it.
What's his name?
Daryl.
Daryl and
The most popular cat. He's the Boba Fett of TV shows.
Wait till they kill him.
I don't think they're gonna go that far unless he has some kind of contractual thing. That guy's sticking around for a while. It's gonna be the Rick Carl and Daryl show in about a season and a half.
No, Carl's gonna be a grown man in a couple seasons.
Oh yeah, he's gonna be a grown man next season. He's suffering the same fate as Brandon.
Yeah,
because like every episode, that kid looks like he's 2 years old.
At least he's laying down and sitting down for most of the season.
he's getting.
Remember
to swell up.
Remember like Steam Pipe Valley and stuff like that when they used to put the head in like a little baby's body.
Yeah.
I think they're about to do that with Bran.
I completely. We'll talk about Game of Thrones more after we're done with B. Claymore. Can we get our friend on the line?
Are you doing that?
Means. All right.
Oh,
Are you just nodding at me?
nodding off.
Not gracefully. Yep. Suncast, you got to edit these 3 seconds out.
Cut it.
All right, we have your guest on the line.
All right, everybody.
We just need video from him.
Yeah.
Hang on, guys.
No problem.
Oh. All right, let me get. All right, you got me? No.
We're good.
All right, you got me?
Yeah. All right, everybody, give a big behind the counter welcome to our guest today, writer extraordinaire and all around cool dude, B. Claymore. How you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. So I don't know if you keep up with what we kept up with what we were talking about, but are you a fan of The Walking Dead at all?
Yeah.
Cool.
I was actually the PR and marketing coordinator at Image when we launched The Walking Dead. Or maybe right after that is when I came on board. I was there when like the 7th issue came out. Which was the one that kind of exploded with the combination of the first trade paperback. So Tony Moore, one of the creators, has been one of my good friends for years. So yeah, no, and I mean, I kind of lost track of the series at some point. But then actually the TV show brought me back on board. And my wife, and I both got into the TV show, and it's like one of those shows that I understand the criticisms that people levy against it, but it's like, I don't care. I just put my brain on hold and I just enjoy the vibe and everything. I think I don't criticize it. I mean, it's just fun to watch. So anyway, I got back into the comic book because of the TV show. So, I did I read like 40 issues, I think, in like 2 weeks, to get caught back up. So, yeah, it's a completely unique animal, and it's like a freakish success story. But yeah, I'm a fan.
Awesome. Yeah, it is a freakish success story.
It is.
So
it was a freakish success story before the TV show even came out, which I don't think people realize. I mean, if that TV show never came out, Kirkman could have retired on what he was doing just on the comic book. I think sometimes people seem to think that the TV show is what, I don't know, elevated it into this phenomenon. But I used to tell people this before the TV show came out, because people would look at the numbers that book was selling and think, well, it's not doing 100,000 or this or that. But because of the way Image is structured and because of all the different books that they were releasing, that thing was like a cash cow before the TV show came out. So kudos to Kirkman for that.
So there is money in comic books.
There is.
There's a lot of money in comic books if you do it right, which I don't do it right very often. But.
Why not? I think you do it right pretty good.
It's, you know what, I'm trying. I mean, the Image model, if you do it right at Image, that's the best place to be. It really is. And I think I've done some good books through Image, but you know, you gotta come out on time. You gotta be consistent. You really need to launch something that has a shelf life beyond like a miniseries. So you can put trades on the shelves that retailers and bookstores will purchase. Robert understood that from day one. He's a marketing genius. Jonathan Hickman has been phenomenal at that. And more guys are starting to follow suit. And I think that's why Image right now, under Eric Stevenson, is kind of enjoying sort of a renaissance. It's like a 180-degree turn from where they started. So.
Yeah, it seems like, you know, like you can't even say big two, Marvel and DC. Like, if you're a fan, it's big three at this point, you know, because Image has been dominating the racks with just like quality material lately. Now, like, what are you working on now? Give us a little bit, of who you are, what you've done recently. Give the fans, kind of like an insight into, your career and your persona.
My persona.
Yeah.
Internet a-hole.
You're a person.
Image was really where I kind of started to make a name for myself, for what it's worth. I did Hawaiian Dick at Image about 10 years ago now, which is hard to believe.
Wow, yeah.
The first miniseries, I did a second miniseries, I did a third miniseries. Right now I'm working on a fourth miniseries for Hawaiian Dick, which is called Aloha Hawaiian Dick, which is going to take the character out of Hawaii, so it'll be the last, for the time being, Hawaiian Dick series, with an artist named Jacob Wyatt, who is, if you just go on Google and Google Jacob Wyatt, and you'll run into his blog, and he's phenomenal talent. He's doing the 5-issue Hawaiian Dick miniseries, and from there he's just going to blow up. He's already working on some stuff for the big 2, and just on his own, he's just a really smart guy with an incredible graphic sense, which is really important for me with Hawaiian Dick. Stephen Griffin was the first artist on Hawaiian Dick.
Right.
He did like 4, 5, 6 or 7 issues and earned 3 Eisner nominations for Best Colorist based on just that. And ever since, and even without Stephen involved at that level, I've always tried to find guys who were really unique and had a strong graphic sensibility to follow up. So anyway, there's that. After Hawaiian Dick, I did a book called Battle Hymn at Image with Jeremy Hahn, which was kind of a World War II superhero thing.
We love that comic.
John and I were both huge fans of that. We used to work at a comic book store together, and when that came out, we were trying to like just kind of shell it out to people, like left and right.
I mean, we're both suckers for World War II stuff, and that was just, it hit the right chord.
I appreciate that. I think reading it now, I mean, it's one of those things that I kind of cringe because it was a while ago, but when I read it again, it still holds up pretty well for me. I think that there's been so much deconstruction of that era since then that people might, I don't know, at the time it seemed like we were doing something kind of unique. And then Jeremy and I did a book called The Leading Man at Oni Press, which we've spent like the last 6 years kicking around Hollywood. And beyond that, I've done my share of DC and Marvel, little bits at Marvel, a little more at DC. Tony Harris and I did the Further Adventures of the Whistling Skull, which just wrapped up at DC. I did a Wildcat thing with Ramon Perez. I did something with Phil Hester there.
Right
Ben
on.
Templesmith and I did a digital Batman thing that just came out not all that long ago. And
I did read that,
which
awesome.
is something else that I'm really happy with. And
Legend of the Dark Knight. Yeah.
Jason Latour and I did a book once at Image called Expatriate. I've done a little bit everywhere. Right now, we just wrapped up the Whistling Skull. I'm doing some more digital stuff for DC. I'm working on a new creator-owned book that I'd like to do sort of long form with an artist named Matt Triano, who's done some Dynamite stuff. That's one that I really want to make something work. Little larger scale, preferably through Image. And I've got some, like, I've done some stuff for Oni Press, and an artist named Eric Kim and I have a book called Billy Smoke that we actually did like a year or 2 ago that earned some headlines because it was optioned for a movie with Matthew Fox attached to it back when people were interested in Matthew Fox.
People still care. I think they still care.
I think you still care.
He's awesome. He actually did a signing with me in San Diego before I had written the book. The book was optioned before we wrote it, which I don't know how that happened exactly. But he flew out to San Diego to sign posters that we made. We had no art or anything for this book, so Eric Kim, the artist, did these posters of the character just so we would have something to sign because it didn't exist. And of course, we had legions of Lost fans wrapped around the corner and just to get Matthew Fox's signature. But it turned out to be like this really awesome, enthusiastic guy. So, I mean, that option has gone by the wayside. But I mean, if he's the kind of guy, I would love to see him get involved with that again, just because he was so enthusiastic and such a cool guy about it. But and then recently, I funded a project through Kickstarter with Jeremy Hahn, writers named Seth Peck and Alex Grecian. Seth has done some X-Men. He and I did a book called 76 at Image together.
Yeah.
Alex is a recent best-selling New York Times author with a book called The Yard. Follow-up is Black Country, and he did a book called Proof at Image. Anyway, the four of us are kind of located in the same area, and we kickstarted a book called Bad Karma, which is about a 200-page hardcover that we'll have physical copies of in July.
Awesome.
Yeah, we all did. We did a variety of stories for that. We did stories together, a bunch of different artists.
So it worked. So the Kickstarter's over. It worked out. The book is.
Yeah, it was great.
That's awesome.
We made way more money than we asked for, and still, I mean, we still pushed the margins because we were taking care of all the guys working with us on the book, and we did T-shirts and merchandise, and it's a hardcover spot gloss thing, and we had actually, I've got on the back of my iPad here, I've got Jonathan Hickman did the design work for us.
Awesome.
So that'll be out in July, and we'll be, I don't know if we'll be in San Diego with it, but we'll be in New York Comic Con, and we should have a presence there with copies of the book and everything.
Awesome.
Strictly creator owned, just, doing it ourselves, see what we could do. So
we'll definitely come and bother you at New York Comic Con when you're around.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, get ready for some word association.
I love New York. The show last year I thought was a nightmare, but I love New York and I like everybody that's there. So
why was it a nightmare?
Yeah,
you couldn't walk.
It's true.
It's lucky they didn't shut it down halfway through, just because it was so oversold.
It was Saturday. It was the day that we just couldn't move at all.
I wasn't there on Saturday.
Which day did we go? That was
Sunday.
insane. Sunday was insane.
Yeah, but and Sunday was, and they had Artist Alley removed, which was kind of nice. So Artist Alley was packed, but not. I mean, you could move around.
Yeah.
So you kind of, if you wanted to be on the show floor, I mean, I know for me, I would go visit whoever I needed to visit, then spend 20 minutes waiting for one escalator to hopefully not break down, so I didn't get shoved down the non-moving staircase by people in stormtrooper costumes. But I mean, in general, the show is awesome, and obviously New York is a great place to be. So
yeah, you're in Kansas City.
Yeah, suburban Kansas City.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean the New York Con's cool. Like we're two local dudes, and for some reason, like I'll agree with you. Last year, it was just as soon as we walked, like that first day we walked in, we were like something's kind of different. It just feels very combustible.
It was very claustrophobic.
Yeah.
I mean, on the one hand, it's great that there's that much interest. We saw that in Kansas City. We have a show here called Planet Comic Con that they expanded into a bigger space.
It's a great
name.
And
it seemed like just by expanding it's like it filled. I mean, the attendance had to be double or triple what it had been in the past. And,
right.
I mean, it's good, but it's I don't know how you deal with that big a crowd. I mean, it's hard to turn people away, but that's what San Diego does. So maybe New York needs to start doing it too.
Yeah, I think it's hard for new fans and even like creators too, where they're like, cool, this is going to be a very regulated event. I'm going to have a space to breathe. I'm going to be able to get my hands out of my pocket. And then you get there and it's none of the above. And, it's like you said, it's 20 guys in stormtrooper costumes pushing you down an escalator onto like another guy dressed like Boba Fett, And
a weird anime thing happening in front of you.
Hey, whatever. I don't know what it is, but yeah. No, I would just dive into booths and people would be, so what's going on? I'm like, just hiding from the crowd for about 5 minutes.
We don't have that luxury. They want us out of the booths.
Yeah. So, all right. So, you just wrapped up Whistling Skull with Tony Moore, for DC.
Tony Harris.
I'm sorry, Tony Harris. I'm sorry.
Other Tony.
I always get my Tonys confused.
Tale of Two Tonys.
So you just wrapped up Whistling Skull with Tony Harris, and it pre-relaunch of 52. How did you guys manage to work in Whistling Skull into the JSA stuff that kind of doesn't really exist in this universe?
Yeah.
And
it wasn't. And was that always your intent to incorporate with the JSA?
No. In fact, it was the book. I mean, the book was actually approved in 2007.
Okay.
And it was a Wildstorm book. And Ben Abernathy was the editor. And it was, I mean, we knew it was going to be a process to get it done because Tony had commitments. But no, initially it was the same basic story, but without the extra elements. And then when Wildstorm collapsed, Tony's one of these guys who just, he'll push for stuff that you wouldn't push for because you think it's just never going to happen. But I mean, to his credit, it's, his philosophy as well. I mean, if they're going to say no, they're going to say no. So he called me up right after the news came out that Wildstorm was no more, and we knew we had a pretty good idea that the book would be okay, but he was afraid it would end up at Vertigo, which I would have been fine with. But he's always had kind of the idea that it would be more of a more accessible book than that, a little more all ages. So he just didn't think that was a good fit. So he called me up one day and had this idea, and he said, "Well, what if we call Jim Lee and all these guys and Dan and see if they'll let us use all this stuff from the Liberty Files," which I was obviously a big fan of. Starman is like is like sort of a seminal book for me.
That book is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the fact that I got to work with Tony down the road and became friends with James, would have blown my mind when I was like a college freshman or whatever. But I mean, I've always been a fan of the Liberty Files universe and all that, and so of course I'm thinking that's never going to happen. I mean, it's a creator-owned book. It was creator-owned, and which Wildstorm had done a few of, and Vertigo's obviously done. And I don't think anybody had ever crossed the streams, where they brought copyrighted DC characters into what had already been, contracted as a creator-owned book.
Right.
So he emailed Hank Canals, who was basically running Wildstorm with Jim Lee and is now running Vertigo and the digital on the West Coast, and Jim Lee, and was just threw it out there. And Hank and Ben Abernathy were like, "Sure, sounds great. I mean, let's give it a shot," because those guys are on the West Coast, and the West Coast has always been a little distant from what's going on the East Coast.
Right.
So for them, it was the same kind of deal. Let's just throw it at the wall and see what happens. I think Jim Lee got behind it probably initially and brought it to Dan. And I don't know if Dan remembered later that he had agreed to do this, but they gave us the green light. And Abernathy had always made sure that everything was documented, so that because I kept saying this is like the antithesis of what DC's doing.
Exactly.
Now. I mean, it's just nothing. I mean, World War II is no longer a
it
thing
doesn't
in
exist.
the DC universe.
It doesn't exist.
I mean, the Justice Society. So it was all the way through. I kept I'd check with Ben and be like, "We're sure that Dan knows what's going on, and this is all going to work." And it was always, "Oh yeah." And
it had no Elseworlds tag on or anything. It was such an unusual placement, and especially at the very beginning of the New 52, where they were like, "Okay, none of this is happening."
Yeah, and I mean, it's not a New 52 book. And Tony was the one who told me that at some point they had created a universe to stash the Liberty Files stuff. I mean, like technically, it exists sort of on the periphery of the, I don't really understand all the hyper time stuff.
The multiverse.
The
it's
multiverse.
There.
I don't get that stuff. But so in Tony's mind, it was like, well, this is actually happening somewhere in the DC universe. So we ran with it. I mean, and I wasn't going to. I love those characters, and it also helped. It really helped to flesh out the world we created.
Right.
Now the only issue for us is that if DC doesn't pick up the baton and do more of the Whistling Skull, if someday the rights revert back to us because it's it's a creator-owned character. Yeah. Well, obviously we can't reprint the material with the DC characters included. But we've always had in mind that we want to do like a 40-issue run. He's a generational hero basically, and we want to tell the story of this particular incarnation of the Whistling Skull from the beginning of his career to the end of his career.
Right.
And we know where that will go, with or without the Liberty Files characters. So somewhere down the line, we'll tell that story. Hopefully, it's a DC. I mean, that's where we want to do it. But it'll get interesting if a few years down the road we end up not doing it there and have to kind of retcon some of that stuff out or differently. I don't know. It's unusual. I mean, it blew my mind that they agreed to it. And I can't complain. I mean, they supported us in a weird way that, and because it was still essentially attached to the old Wildstorm, which is the West Coast, we were always completely detached from what was going on on the East Coast with the New 52, which is fine. And Abernathy, who had edited it for years, left right as the first issue was coming out. So Christy Quinn took over, who was one who had assisted him on it,
right? Which
was another kind of factor to and then, like I said, Hank went from being in charge of Wildstorm to in charge of digital to in charge of Vertigo, and Jim Lee so I don't know. was a weird confluence of events, but
It's like the little engine that could, basically.
yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. I mean, the whole way through, and there was a moment. I mean, don't get me wrong. There was a moment like when we had the first issue done, where it went to the East Coast, and I could tell there was sort of like, whoa, what is this again?
Yeah.
It's like, but I mean, I know there are horror stories out there involving editorial and this and that and everything, but I got to give Dan and Jim specifically, I think, credit for not getting in the way or not, or letting us do the book, and they promoted it pretty well too. So
it was good. I remember getting very excited for it when it was announced, because I'm a big fan of the Liberty Files. I know Rich is also.
Yeah.
And because it was in the New 52, under whatever pretenses or anything that we knew about, it was kind of like a glimmer of hope that the JSA still kind of existed.
Right.
And it was like, all right. And then,
well, I mean, it's funny. I remember talking to James Robinson when he was initially going to do a JSA book, and then I don't know, shifted into Earth 2 or whatever. And he was as enthused about what we were doing with this stuff, because I think this is kind of where he would have liked the kind of playground he would have liked to play around with initially. And he kept telling me that how much people were going to love it and hate the new stuff he was doing, which didn't turn out to be the case. I think Earth 2 worked pretty well, but I don't know. It's one of those weird things. I mean, it's, we got the 6 issues done. The trade will be out like right around Halloween. And it's funny too, because I know that there were some people who were big Liberty Files fans who were maybe a little disappointed that the JSA didn't play a bigger part in the story. Again, that's partly because it had to be rewritten to incorporate them.
Right.
Although I did give a little nod to the Boy Commandos in one of the issues, which half the people I talk to don't even know who the characters are. But
you're talking to hard DC fans. Will know.
I know. I'd be like, the Boy Commandos, and they'd be like, but anyway, I don't know. I can't complain. And the other thing I was going to say is that it actually did develop. The book took so long to do and was rewritten a few different times, and it's such a strange animal. And Tony abandoned like his straight photo ref style and just cartooned the hell out of the book. I mean, I think the art's phenomenal. So it's all left turns, really. I was surprised how many people really, and the storytelling isn't strictly linear. I mean, the few complaints I read about the book were from people who read the first issue and were upset that the whole thing didn't make sense to them right away, which to me is a stupid criticism if you know there are 6 issues involved.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I was really surprised with how many people like really hooked into the book. I mean, I don't know. There seems to be a little cult audience that really, really enjoyed it. So that's gratifying.
I think it's because of the fact that it was quality, and it harkened back to pre-relaunch a little bit, where I don't know if you've been keeping up with any of the DC books at all, but there's a handful of books that are really good, and there's also like a double handful of books that
are making me crazy.
Maybe we could do without. And I think Whistling Skull fell into that category of like, oh, cool, this is where they're headed as a company, and then once it's kind of like maybe not, know.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I did a book at Wildstorm like after this was approved that called Casey Blue, Beyond Tomorrow, which was an original book, and that wasn't totally successful. I mean, it's people like it, and Carlo Barberi drew it. But that book was literally like, it was almost like, well, while we're waiting for the Whistling Skull to come together, just let's do something else. I mean, it was like, so I had 6 issues of that book done before we had the first issue of the Whistling Skull scripted, even though it was a year after it had been approved. So yeah, it was very much it was a Wildstorm thing. I mean, which aesthetically and everything was just kind of separate from what DC was doing.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's an odd duck. I mean, I don't really know how to explain it. DC's got Warner Brothers on their back, and they've got a real rein on it. I mean, everything's editorially driven, which is fine, but it still just kind of shocks me that, every month I'd get my comp copies and be like, well, it's going to be on the stand. So
this is real.
Yeah. That's kind of how things happen for me. They don't seem to go like in the straight line. So
that's
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 fine.
most of our lives.
Yeah.
yeah,
Now,
that's true.
now you mentioned like a success, like what you mentioned a successful book. Now, what to a creator, a writer such as yourself, like what would you consider like a success? Like, is it units? Is it fan fervor? Is it getting the movie deal? Like what do you or all the above?
It depends on the project. I mean, it's entirely based on the project. I mean, like I said, if you're doing a Justice League relaunch and you sell 30,000 copies, it's a failure, flat out failure. If you're doing a brand new Image book and it sells 22,000 copies, it's a success, like an unqualified success in terms of sales. So even your sales success varies based on the project.
Right.
But on the other hand, like, I mean, I'm going to do this new Hawaiian Dick book, and it's the 4th in a series, and I think it's going to be accessible to people who've never read the book before, and we'll promote it and everything. For me, it'll be successful if the audience that reads the book, is affected by it. It's different in tone from what I've done before. It's a little heavier. There's a small cult of Hawaiian Dick fans. It's for whatever reason. I mean, it's the first thing I ever did. It's the book that people still. I mean, I've sold a lot more copies of other stuff when I've, like this Batman book with Ben and the Whistling Skull and all that, outsold most of the Hawaiian Dick stuff. But, when you do a personal project like that you invest a lot of yourself in, and people, I think, connect to that, it resonates with them. So that's the book that any convention I do, I have the most people. And like a lot of people who aren't reading like the New 52 or even Marvel Now and stuff, like, I don't know, like casual fans seem the most interested in where we're going with that book. And that's really gratifying to me. Like a lot of books that fans feel like there's an obligation for them to read the book.
Right.
I mean, like you're reading, you guys, I hear you talking about the New 52. You're reading a lot of stuff that I don't know if like you would have just picked up on the stands, naked if it wasn't a part of this bigger, movement or whatever. I mean, you're trying it out. You want to see how it's working and everything. I know fans that are hooked into the big two feel like they've got to be on board with whatever's happening so they can either dump on it or else whatever.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going around.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way it is. I mean, they feel obligated.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing. So it's really hard. That's why a book like The Whistling Skull is kind of a hard sell, because people realize, well, this isn't interconnected with whatever else is going on in the New 52. It's not important, in the larger universe. So you realize that people who do like it because of what it is, I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, absolutely.
No, you're 100% right. I mean, because there's so many ethereal tangents that comic fans go through in different age groups, especially with, like you said, you're kind of pressured to keep, if you're a Superman fan, you're kind of pressured to keep reading Superman, and anything outside of that wheelhouse, you don't care about, it has no weight for you. But I think that's what you're trying to get at.
Also when the New 52 started, me and Rich, we went through every single book they were putting on the stands just to do the exact, give them the benefit of the doubt and see, how this is going to turn out or anything.
Yeah.
I find myself doing that less actually now because I'm starting to see their method of the way that they're trying to portray DC. That I'm one of those fans that's not particularly happy about it.
Like I do that with more Image at this point, where
Image I'll give almost everything a try.
I'll pretty much buy every single number one they put out, regardless of who's doing it. If I'll flip through it, I'll be like, oh, this is awesome, I'm gonna pick it up. Now, Clay, is there anything that you're up to date with, like anything you really like that you're reading right now?
Yeah, it's funny actually. I'm actually reading more new stuff than I think I've read in years.
That's good.
Some of it is actually like I'm reading a lot of Image stuff. I mean, like I said, I've worked for Image and I've done books through Image for years. But I think Eric Stevenson deserves the most credit for this. They've kind of finally reached that point where they've got all their ducks in a row, and books are given a fair chance when they come out. And creators are starting to see how it can work, how much freedom there is, and that it can be financially successful. You're not just throwing a book out there hoping for a movie deal. You can actually sell copies of the book and make a profit. Books like Chew.
Yeah.
I read just about anything Jonathan does, Hickman does. I love. He's one of those guys who can still surprise me, and I I don't read everything he does and see exactly where he's going with it. I think Matt Fraction, when he does his own stuff, Casanova is one of my favorite books ever. I'm looking forward to seeing what he's doing at Image next. Some of the Oni, Six Gun by Cullen Bunn and Brian Hurt at Oni. I know a lot of people talk about. I loved the dark, not the darkness, but what was the book they did? The Damned, which is the book they did before that. And they're St. Louis guys, so they're essentially local, and I've known them for years. But Six Gun is just phenomenal.
That book really surprised the hell out of me, and it really grabbed a hold of me where I needed to find all the back issues of it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and here's the thing: Brian Hurt is a guy he's a phenomenal artist,
awesome artist,
and I love that he is perfectly willing to this is his thing right now. The Six Gun. He's not doing the Six Gun so that he can go do Batman or the Avengers or whatever. I mean, he's had those opportunities, but this is his baby, and he's making it work. And I just love, you can see how much he's invested in it.
I also love that we have a really awesome Western book out there too.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I'm a big fan of Westerns. I like Nowhere Man that Stevenson.
That book is awesome.
Yeah, it's really good. That's a book that Eric's been working on for maybe 15 years.
Really?
Different versions. So I was glad to see that come out. I love Revival.
That book rocks. That book is awesome. Yeah. You know what? You're the first person I know that actually reads that book, and I think it's with the interest in zombies and the undead right now. I don't understand why that book is not.
It should be bigger.
More of a buzz book.
It's doing all right, but this is being around for a decade for what that's worth. I know again those are Chicago guys, Tim and Mike Norton and Jenny Friston. So you get you get these communities that you're you share sensibilities and you're friends with, so you're always looking to see what your friends are doing, and it's nice when your friends do books like that where you can say this is really good. This isn't like me saying, oh, that's awesome. You're like, no, this is a really good book. That's really good. Jai Nitz and Greg Smallwood doing Dream Thief at Dark Horse is pretty good. Greg Smallwood is a phenomenal emerging talent. I'm really into a lot of Marvel stuff now. I think Marvel now has re-energized their lineup. I mean, it's I'm kind of blown away, to be honest with you, with guys who were doing good work at Marvel and on their own have Jason Aaron has figured out how to make Thor work.
He can write an awesome Wolverine.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. He's
but not like a scalped version of Wolverine. He does a really all ages type of Wolverine that's really great that I wouldn't expect from him.
Yeah, Jason is one of those guys who there's nothing. He doesn't calculate at all. It's like he just has the ability to figure. I don't know. It's hard to explain. He just kind of he marches along steadily, and just everything he does to me seems to fit tonally. It's not. I can read a book by him, and I don't his voice isn't in my head. I mean, it's not I don't know how to describe that. It's it's all unique and well done, and it seems so easy, but I know it's not. So anyway, Thor. I think Fraction's Hawkeye is far and away the best thing he's ever done at Marvel. Daredevil's been great.
Yeah.
Jamie and Kieran, Young Avengers, I think is great.
Well, you mentioned Hickman a lot. I mean, we're big Hickman fans. Yeah. And I think I heard about him first when Nightly News came out, and it wasn't my cup of tea right away. Today I love the book. But then I read Secret Warriors, and I'm like, oh, this guy has to I felt like he was going to be a cult hit, and he was never going to make it to the top. And I'm so proud of where he is right now.
Yeah. I think it's a credit to the audience, to be honest with you, because I think Jonathan thought that. I mean, I know when he did Secret Avengers, he was like, well, I'm going to ride this, for what it's worth until they throw me out or whatever.
Yeah.
And the fact that people really bought into what he was doing, and he's always one of the smartest guys in comics. Yep. I mean, just absolutely, he's one of those guys you can always rely on to give you good thoughts and good advice, and everything he does is well thought out, and he thinks about it individually. It's impressive. I also two other things I want to talk about, or just mention, because I'm in this Marvel kick lately. I think Bendis' all new X-Men is the best thing he's done in years.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
When Stuart Immonen is drawing it, it's about as good as it gets.
That's the top of the stack right there.
Oh yeah, I mean he's brilliant. I think Kelly Sue is doing a great job on Captain Marvel.
Yes, she is
creating her own little universe, and that book feels like a cult hit, but I mean, I don't know. The support it's gotten from a segment of the readership is fantastic, but I'm really proud of what she's done there. And then I also think anything BPRD is awesome.
Oh, that's my favorite. Yeah. I think that's slowly becoming my number one read.
Yeah. Anything Jason Latour is involved with is awesome.
Awesome.
and Matt Kent is emerging into one of the, and again, these are friends, Matt Kent's a St. Louis guy. Latour and I have known each other for years, but the reason that we're friends is because, early on you could see what the potential was with these guys, and it's awesome to see them doing their own stuff and also putting their own spin on stuff from Marvel, DC, or Dark Horse or whatever. So,
and Matt Kent, he did Super Spy, right?
Yeah.
Super Spy. See, he's like Lemire, like two guys who I never thought I could see writing a superhero book.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
and like Kent, when he wrote Super Spy, I was like, this is brilliant. This is like Eisner quality stuff. And then I think they just announced he's coming on to a big Marvel book also, or DC book.
He's doing some of the Marvel event stuff, and then he's also doing a couple of the Batman villain books. Have you ever read? Did you see the book he and Colin did at Oni called The Tooth?
Yeah, that was awesome.
It was awesome.
That was really good.
That's a book you have to have in the hardcover edition and everything. It's just so much fun.
He was seated at New York Comic Con. He was sitting next to Bunn and Hurt, and he had that book on display, and I was like, this looks awesome.
Oh, it's good. It's just too much fun. Yeah, and like Brian and Matt will always do shows together, and they'll do Brian will do inks and then Matt will paint it or vice versa, and they get together and do these awesome jam sketches and stuff. If you're ever at a convention, you have to stop by Brian and Matt's tables because those guys are just so creative and so much fun. They've always got something cool going on.
Now,
and Colin's all right too for a redneck.
He's very redneck.
We're from Queens, New York, so everybody's a redneck to us.
We actually interviewed Colin on our first season, our first New York Comic Con.
Colin's awesome. He's one of the guys you want to sit. You just if you ever run into him at a con or a bar, just ask him to tell you stories about ask him about the time he was attacked by a mountain lion.
I will.
All right.
He's from the backwoods of Carolina originally, and he's got some great stories.
Well,
so
I think you said Rich said at one point that he sounds like a bald Zach Galifianakis.
Seth Galifianakis.
Yes, Seth Galifianakis.
That's good. That's good. I like that. Yeah.
He's like the original Nature Boy.
He was so calming, right, when we interviewed him.
It was a fun interview.
Oh, yeah.
Now I know you got to go in a couple of minutes. Let's try to get one more in there. What is your dream project as far as what character would you just love to write the crap out of?
I don't know. I mean, it's honestly it's hard to answer that without thinking about where things are now.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite concepts and characters of all time is Blackhawk.
Okay.
I love the Blackhawks, and I actually pitched it once with an editor when I was doing more DC stuff. But what I pitched wasn't really what I had liked about the concept. It was a modernized version of it. So in the third Hawaiian Dick series, I kind of created my own flying squadron of World War II characters called Screaming Black Thunder.
Nice.
That's a good name.
Which I may someday kind of springboard into their own thing, so I can just do what I want with it.
Cool.
I don't know why. That's just a concept I've always loved. There's a lot of Marvel stuff I'm a big fan of. I think Ghost Rider's a book that it's just waiting for the right take.
Absolutely.
I mean, Jason Aaron did a great Ghost Rider, but I'm not sure the supernatural hellfire demonic stuff really works for the readership. But
I agree with you on every level with every supernatural character. It's hard to do the hell stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get tired real quick.
Yeah. So I don't know. That doesn't always work for me. I think Jason did the best you could with that stuff, especially when Tony Moore was involved in it. But I don't know. Ghost Rider, I'm a big fan. Ant-Man. I mean, I love these sort of minor characters that have more, I don't know,
room to work with.
More room to work with and more potential than people normally give them. So I don't know.
I've said all my life, I would love the one book I'd love to work on is Shocker. I would love to do a Shocker book.
Yeah, well, I don't even know what that's about. A Shocker. Well, I used to want to do a Prowler book. I would
love to do a Prowler book.
I did just do I did a Black Widow Phantom X story for A+X.
Oh, I read that. That was really good.
No, actually, it's not out yet.
Yeah?
No.
I thought I read that.
This guy read it. Is good.
They did a Black Widow. They already did a Black Widow story in A+X.
Yeah, that's what I'm messing up with.
Because when I pitched it, I was like, I know they just did one, but anyway. So and a guy named Chris Anka, who's done a lot of designs and covers, is drawing it. So that was a lot of fun. Black Widow and Phantom X are both awesome characters. So
yeah. We'll pick that up when it comes out. But Clay, we have to wrap up. We got another show starting in 2 minutes. That is
Little League. So
It's about Windows 95. So any final words before we send you packing, kid?
No, look out. Go to bclaymore.com, and I've been trying to update upcoming projects, and you can see what I'm up to. And if you go to New York City Comic Con, look up Bad Karma and check out the book there. So.
Right on, man.
Very cool, man. We really enjoyed having you on, man. Thanks so much. We'd love to have you back on again. Maybe when you put out that new Hawaiian deck book.
Right on, man.
And we'll see you at New Comic Con if we can.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, man. Take it easy.
Cool guy.
All right. We got 2 minutes before the Linux explosion happens.
Shazbot.
Do you get upset when I say it's a show about Windows 95?
No.
All right. I think your chat room does, though. All right. Whatever. Well, it looks like we got to wrap it up. That was a good interview.
It was a very good interview.
Very cool dude.
I like him. I really want to talk more comics with him. I always like talking to these guys and find out what they are really enjoying right now.
Like that too. What do you like?
Yeah, no, because I think that you get to get a good idea of where their head's at in terms of their interests and stuff like that. And it kind of fascinates me. Like when Chris Daniels was on, I could have talked comics with that guy for 100 years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll be able to talk to him again at some point.
I'm sure.
You know.
All good guys.
All good guys so far. I want like a real dick on the show.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
And we had some good bits about, kind of the inner workings of an interesting project like Wrestling Skull.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very enlightening.
Right. Well, it looks like it's that time again. We got to wrap it up. This has been another episode of Behind the Counter. I'd like to thank our special guest, B. Claymore. Go look him up, bclaymore.com. I'm Rich Stambolian.
I'm Tonto Hot Springs.
Good night.